yet. That's okay. David Gloria hasn't live streamed in a little while. I've been we're good. We're streaming. Okay, we are live streaming. So thank you for joining the meeting of the RTC's Bus Shelter and Bench Advisory Committee. Madam Chairwoman, staff is ready for you to begin the meeting.
Thank you, Marion. Good afternoon, Chair Aaron Breen, for the record. I'd like to call to order the December 17th, 2020 meeting of the RTC's Bus Shelter and Bench Advisory Committee. RTC staff will begin with roll call of committee members and introduce staff on the line.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Marion Dubois, Management Analyst for the RTC, for the record. I will be calling your name out. It may not be in alphabetical order because of how I've been adding them to this list, but please confirm your attendance as I read your name out. Chair Aaron Breen.
I am here.
Then we have Shannon Ahart.
Yes, I am here.
Carl Anderson.
Here.
And then I have Bill Redfern.
I'm here.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Thank you. Vincent Richardson.
I'm here.
And Rick Skipton.
Present.
Did I miss anybody? I think we're good. Thank you so much, everyone. Also, please note that we have several RTC staff on the line for today's meeting. This includes Mr. Carl Scarborough, Director of Transit Amenities and Technical Equipment, Ms. Ellen Marcial, Manager of Transit Amenities, Ms. Antoinette Braddock, Manager of Paratransit Operations, Mr. Sherwin Gutierrez, Director of Finance, and Mr. Jim Champeau, Transit Mobility Program Supervisor. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Marion. First item on the agenda is citizens' participation. Mr. Scarborough.
Hey, Carla, I think you're still on mute.
I am. Sorry about that. Thank you, Chairwoman Breen, members of the committee. Carl Scarborough, RTC Director of Technical Equipment and Transit Amenities, for the record. The first item on the agenda is to conduct your first citizens participation period. As you know, on March 22nd, 2020, the State of Nevada Executive Department issued Declaration of Emergency Directive 006, which suspended the requirement to have a physical location for public meetings. Pursuant to Directive 006, and for the health and safety of the community, this meeting is being held telephonically. To allow for public participation, the RTC is accepting public comments via email at publiccomments@rtcsnv.com. Comments can be submitted to be read aloud or to be added directly to the written record. Ms. Marion Dubois will read the public comments received by the RTC.
Thank you. This is the first time set aside for public comment. Comments will be limited to the first 500 words. Please pardon my dogs. With the remaining words to be included in the written record. Do we have any comments?
Thank you, Chair Breen. Marion Dubois again for the record. No, we do not have any public comments at this time. And before we move forward, I missed Audrey Aslin in my roll call a few minutes ago. She is on the line and one of our very important members on this committee. Sorry, Audrey, are you still on?
I am, thanks. I was just wondering if I was replaced.
No, we can't replace you.
Audrey,
Sorry,
we would never replace you.
Oh, please.
I have notes and you're squished in between the notes. Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
You're still important. All right, other than that, no public comments. We can move on. Thank you,
Madam Chair, before we move on, Deputy CEO Francis Julian has joined us today, and he might want to speak during citizens participation. I'm not sure.
Mr. Julian, would you like to speak during citizens' participation?
I'm guessing no.
Okay, well, there's another one at the end of the meeting if he feels strongly about it, so.
There we go.
Okay, so thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is to approve the October 15th, 2020 meeting minutes. Any comments or questions from the committee? Hearing no questions or comments, do we have a motion on the floor?
I make a motion to approve. I make a motion to approve the minutes from October 15th, 2020.
Well, I think that we have two motions there, but I am sorry to say I couldn't hear them. Maren, could you hear that?
Yes, it was Dr. Vincent Richardson who called for a motion to approve the minutes.
Great, thank you very much. So we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion carries. So item number 3 on the agenda is to receive a video update on the enhanced lighting efforts at bus stops, near and dear to my heart, throughout the transit system. Mr. Scarborough.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carl Scarborough again, for the record. Periodically, about twice a year, the RTC does passenger surveys where we ask our riders comments about our system and our service. And one of the things that we hear back consistently is about the lack of lighting at some of our bus stops. It makes people feel unsafe. And then from a driver perspective, lack of light makes it harder for them sometimes to see people waiting at the bus stops. We've been able to take some action in addressing this need of our customers, which we're very satisfied about. And we've upgraded lighting at nearly 1,400 bus stops throughout the valley. And we've installed about 300 freestanding lights for bus stops where there's no bus shelter or nearby street light. So we'd like to share with you a brief video that our GAM team put together that we ran on our blog that talks about the projects we've been working on. So Maren, if you want to.
Anytime you add light to any situation, you're going to decrease crime. It puts them less at risk of being a victim of a crime while they're at the shelter when there's better lighting.
And of course, the lighting was all installed. The last one went in this month, so we're completed with that project. The only thing I'd like to add that I forgot to mention earlier is one of the things we did on shelters is we put lights on the back edge of the roof to illuminate the area behind the shelter. And that request or observation came from our law enforcement community, who pointed out that, you know, sometimes when the shelter is lit up, it makes the area behind the shelter even darker. So we've addressed that on shelters as part of this project. With that, though, I'll answer any questions that the committee has.
Are there any comments or questions from the committee?
I have a question, Carl.
Yes, sir.
So I suppose I could know, but I don't, how many thousands of bus stops we have in the RTC. But I'm wondering, you know, what percentage of bus stops have no lighting at this point? Would you have any idea?
We have 3,400 bus stops in our system. We have about 1,800 stops that have a shelter of some sort of amenity. I know we have about 500 shelters that are unlighted. That's the way they were installed. I can't tell you of the remaining stops how many aren't underneath a street light or not off the top of my head. We can certainly look that up for you. One of the things we're going to be doing in this next calendar year is we're going to be installing another 200 of the freestanding lights. Our customers have really liked those, and we've had a lot of good feedback on them. So we're just going to keep rolling it out until we get to, the stops where we have people waiting for the bus.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Carl, could the freestanding solar lights, could those also go at the shelters that were installed originally with no lighting?
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to do. We've been looking at a way to come up with a solar kit to put on some of those shelters, and we just haven't, because there's so many different variations of design, we just haven't found anything. So we'll probably will address those with the freestanding lights.
Great. So those of you who have been on this committee for a while, you know that, we looked at lighting a while ago, and so it's very exciting to see this come to fruition, and just such a huge improvement for encouraging people to take the bus after dark and keeping them safer. So I'm pretty excited about it. Anyone else have comments or questions for Carl? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the next item on the agenda, item number 4, is to receive a presentation introducing a new web-based and mobile technology product that will be offered to ADA paratransit customers in early 2021. Ms. Antoinette Braddock will be providing this presentation. Antoinette?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. For the record, my name is Antoinette Braddock. I'm the manager of paratransit and specialized services for the RTC. RTC staff is regularly looking for ways and opportunities to improve our paratransit customers' experience. And some of those ways that we want to improve their experience are through more user-friendly, more efficient experience, and more consistent with our other public transportation options, like fixed route, as an example. With that said, I'm excited to tell you about a new product offering that the RTC is working on for our paratransit customers. Over the last 10 months, RTC staff, along with our technical partner, Trapeze, has been busy designing and testing an app and online dashboard. This technology will give our paratransit customers the flexibility to schedule, track, and review their paratransit rides. This is similar to some of the technology we currently have on fixed route, and so we're glad to be able to work on offering it to our paratransit riders. We've branded this technology MyRTC Para, your full ride access, and you can see our logo on the first slide. That's what it's going to look like to our customers when they're able to use it. Next slide, please. So let me tell you a little bit about what our customers can expect from the technology. So they'll have the opportunity to use both a web-based dashboard or an app using their smartphone. Customers can schedule their rides at their convenience, no telephone wait time. Customers can easily make changes or cancel their rides. Noting here that this will help with our paratransit contractor and the other paratransit riders with late cancels, wasted driver resources, and so it kind of cuts some of that extra pork out of that budget because we're able to save some costs there. Customers will also be able to see where their vehicle is and the expected arrival time. Another note here, we expect this to help with no-shows and long wait times. which again, it saves on driver resources. It saves money for the agency that we can either allocate back to our other services or just save that money, but usually we allocate that back to the services. Importantly to note, the technology meets visually impaired accessibility standards. And then another notable item here is it will reduce the pressure on our call center and our call center hold time. So for the folks that don't have access to smartphones or computer technology, they'll be able to get through to our call center a lot faster and won't have to stay on hold for as long. So as you can see, this benefits the agencies and our customer both, and we're excited about this technology. Next slide, please. All right, so where are we in the process? So we recently upgraded the trapeze system, and for those of you who don't know what that technology is, it is the technology that we use in paratransit to schedule paratransit rides. The upgrade was required to bring this technology into our systems. So that has been complete successfully. And in the months to come, our TC staff will conduct follow-up testing on what we have already been doing prior to the technology upgrade. And then once we're comfortable with our internal testing, we will start to engage a small group of paratransit customers for a pilot test group. We will be very hands-on with this test group. It'll be a very slow roll, so we can further kind of find any issues that we maybe didn't notice with the technology and correct those and get any user experience feedback, iron out those wrinkles, if you will. And then once we are fully comfortable with the customer experience and what we have tested and what the product looks like, then we will be able to roll it out bigger picture to all of our paratransit customers. And we anticipate this to happen late first quarter of 2020. And with that said, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Antoinette. Any comments or questions from the committee? Well, I think that sounds like a pretty awesome project. If there's no other questions or comments, we can move on to the next item, which is item number 5 on your agenda, the financial update and presentation for fiscal 2020. I feel like there should be sound effects after that. So to give us this presentation is Mr. Sherwin Gutierrez. Sherwin?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Good afternoon. Sherwin Gutierrez, Director of Finance for the record. I'm here to present a financial update for the RTC for fiscal year 2020. Next slide, please. This slide, we are doing a comparison of recessions. In fiscal 2008, there was a gradual decline versus a steep decline in fiscal year 2020, mainly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In fiscal year 2008, it took us about 27 months to reach the lowest point versus 26.8% versus 2 months during this pandemic at a low of 35.5%. Decreases were less severe in May and June, and as we were creating the final budget in May, in April and May this year, we have very little information to base our revenue projections on what we are seeing. Basically, we're just looking at what's in the news, the activity on the strip, and also closely collaborating with our financial consultant to come up with a good budget number. Next slide, please. We set, can you please click one more, Maren? Thank you. One more. Thank you. We set our fiscal year 20 projections in May for sales tax for a 14% decrease. April, May, and June actual sales tax revenue were much better than projected. And fiscal 20 revenue was a little bit 9% down compared to 14% that we project. This accounts for an additional revenue of 11.5 million in fiscal 2020, but still we're about 20 million down from our pre-COVID-19 projection, which is 232.9 million. Next slide, please. One more. Thank you. As discussed in the previous slide, April, May, and June actual sales tax revenue were much better than projected. This maybe is attributable to the $600 per week additional federal unemployment benefit and stimulus funds given to individuals and families. For August and September, we will not have the same benefit from the federal government, so we will see what happens next. Next slide, please. 2008 recession for MVFT revenue, or motor vehicle fuel tax revenue, was much more stable. The big decline in month 26 was an anomaly due to a large distributor not paying the tax for a month and then repaying that over time. For fiscal 2020, MVFT experienced a sudden and steep decline similar to the sales tax. As you can see, it's a 47.2 decline for for April of this year. Next slide, please. Click one more, please. One more. Thank you. During March, April, and May of 2020, we were monitoring the Nevada Fuel Distributors Association for fuel sales. Sales were about half of what was normal. In early May, we had preliminary March sales numbers that were consistent with at least half of March sales at about half of the normal levels. During that time, we didn't know if sales were going to get worse or improve. Thus, as a finance guy, we normally budget conservatively. April came in at 48% down, very close to half. May and June numbers came in much better than projected at 31 and 15% respectively, but still down from previous year's numbers and the pre-COVID projection. Next slide, please. Fuel revenue indexing is very similar to MVFT. By the way, fuel revenue indexing is another source of revenue tax that we receive out of every gallon of fuel. We projected 59% decline, and actual came in 43, 27, and 13% down from the last year's actual. Next slide, please. Fuel revenue indexing too is very consistent with other fuel taxes due to comparisons with pre-COVID projections. June actually came in above fiscal year 2019 actual due to indexing rate increase that occurred last July 1, 2020. One thing to note on on MVFT, FRI, fuel revenue indexing, and fuel revenue indexing to revenue sources, this can only be used for roadway projects for our member jurisdictions. Next slide, please. COVID-19 has taken a bigger toll on transit revenue due to decreased ridership and rear door boarding in April and May of 2020 for our fixed route services. For fiscal 2020, we have a 19% decrease in revenue, or 16.6 million drop from fiscal year 2019. For fiscal year 2021, we project a 31% decline, or 19 million drop from fiscal 2020 numbers. Next slide, please. Similar to sales tax and motor vehicle fuel tax revenues, ridership fell to a 57.8% decline in April, and hovered around the 50% for May, June, and July. In the 2008 recession, it took until month 30th to reach the lowest decline in our ridership at only 15.9%. Next slide, please. Thank you. April and May were rear door boarding months with very little fare collected. We began front door boarding in the first week of June and started collecting fares again once we have installed additional safety measures for our fixed route operators. That's when we started collecting again. For fiscal 20, we have experienced a 24% decline in fare revenue that equated to a loss of 16 million. Next slide, please. As a direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic, RTC was able to lower actual operating expense of about 16 million from what we originally budgeted, from 247.8 million to 231.8 million. This consists of all the salaries and wages related to transit, including benefits and our services and transfers to our admin fund. Next slide, please. RTC was also able to lower actual capital expenses of about 27.3 million by delaying capital projects by a year or some of them indefinitely until we see recovery. Next slide, please. This concludes my prepared presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Sherwin. Great if semi-depressing presentation, but has to be looked at. So, are there any comments or questions from the committee?
Madam Chair, Charles Scarborough, I just want to point out real quickly that we're primarily concerned with the transit budget because that's where the money comes for all of the stuff we do, and that is funded through sales tax and fare revenue, passenger fare revenue, and then obviously federal grant funds. But that's the areas that we're most concerned with, and obviously if you see our passenger revenue collection, while I think our finance team has done a good job of managing us through this, that's pretty concerning.
Thank you, Carl. And one thing to note to the committee as well, within our finance team, grants team, we're working closely with our transit amenities team and our transit team to find funding opportunities for a lot of the shelter needs, lighting. So we have been very successful in the past for discretionary funding opportunities, and we constantly look for those opportunities to provide a safer riding experience to our community. We take pride in that, and our executive team have that in mind and have that direction for us, for all of us.
Thank you. I think that's also incredibly important to point out. It would appear that people are riding transit again, which is good. I see lots of buses that are, to their quasi, not real capacity, but their COVID capacity. So, as usual, RTC staff do an awesome job of making the best out of any situation. So does anyone else have a comment or questions?
Madam Chair, because of the sharp decline in revenue, will we have any projects that will be put on hold?
Sherwin, would you like to address that, or Carl, one of you?
I can address those. Like what I mentioned on our last slide, RTC was able to lower our capital expense by 27.3 million. So one thing we did there was to delay some of our projects. One of those projects that got delayed is our CNG fueling infrastructure Phase B. As most of you, or I don't know if as most of you might be aware, RTC is operating almost 75 to 80% on our fixed route under CNG. And then all of our paratransit vehicles are under CNG as well. So we want to make sure we continuously improve our infrastructure to meet our growing demand for CNG fueling. So that's a $6.4 million that we delayed by a year. And then for fiscal 2020, we also delayed the delivery of 59 vehicles amounting to 7.1 million. So that the actual delivery came in fiscal 2021. Another thing that we have delayed indefinitely is what we call CAD AVL project. It's about $6 million for year one. That's a multi-year capital project. And I think the CAD AVL is computer-aided dispatch. Carl, can you help me with that one? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Sherwin. That's our onboard computer system on the buses that controls everything from headway monitoring to our radio communications go through it. It's really kind of the brains of the bus. Controls all of our messaging signage. Also on the back end, it is what our transit planning team uses for planning buses and times on route. So it's a pretty comprehensive system for managing the fixed route system.
Yes, and instead of procuring a new one, what we did was look for opportunities to upgrade and enhance the existing one that we have for the time being at a much lesser cost. And then we also delayed the IBMF oil and water separator, one of our facilities at Simmons or North Las Vegas. That's about $2 million. And also delayed a bus wash project at our southern bus yard for about $1 million. So those are the major projects that we have delayed or whether indefinitely or through fiscal year 2021. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, thanks.
Terrific. Any other questions?
Yes, this is Rick. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
So on a previous slide, I think 2 or 3 slides earlier, there was a projection for 2021, and I think that it might have been ridership down by a third or so. Keep going back. I think this one, right?
I think it might. This is actually revenue. As we don't know when the end for the pandemic, we still are on a decline in terms of our revenue. Right now,
so what's the assumptions that you're using? What's the basis for the projection? I'm just wondering if it's some sort of financial reporting coming out of the state of Nevada, the federal government, Clark County. Is it based on the 3 months of data that you had before? I'm just wondering how you came up with this.
One thing that we're looking at the ridership level. When we, of course, when we were budgeting, we didn't know, to be honest with you. We don't know when the impact, as to the extent, with the number of years. So we looked at it from a conservative standpoint. What happened this year? It's a 19% decline. And from what we're hearing in the community about the conventions not coming up, so we did a projection based on revenues that we're collecting along the Strip corridor, which is very significant. 1/3 of our fare revenue comes from the Strip. So we have to take a deeper decrease on that one. And coupled with that, we know we have a 50% decline in our ridership. So we have to factor the level of ridership that we're seeing and to come up with that projection.
So you had about what, maybe 2 months of normal revenue, January and February, and then starting in March, the revenue started to decline, I assume. So the 2020 year would reflect something like 10 or 9.5 months of the COVID effect, so to speak. and then the other couple of months would have been kind of a normal effect. So it looks like what we're saying is that things are going to get a lot worse in 2021, substantially worse than they were in 2020. I'm just wondering if we really think that that's the case.
Yeah, Rick, if I can, those are fiscal year numbers for us. So 2021 is the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. So 2020 had about 3 or 4 months of the pandemic in it, and 2021 is projected to have 12 months of the pandemic.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
That makes sense?
Does that answer your question, Rick?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, well, if there are no more questions or comments, we can move on to the next item, which is item number 6 on your agenda, a presentation from RTC staff on the Mobility and Training electronic book. Jim Champeau will be giving this presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Champeau, Transit Mobility Program Supervisor for the record. I was asked by the Transit Amenities Department to come today and give you a little bit of a overview of a new project that we worked on during the COVID-19 pandemic. And for some of you that might not know who we are or what we do, we're the Mobility Training Department for RTC. We're housed at the Mobility Training Center over on Sunset and Decatur. And it's a big orange building, the MTC. We've been there since 2016. If any of you haven't been there yet, we would love to have you come and visit once we open back up. It's a very unique facility, the only facility of its kind in the country. We have an indoor training center that simulates an outdoor environment inside. So we have streets, we have 2 40-foot buses, we have bus shelters, ticket vending machines, ambient noise that simulates traffic flow. And we also have the only blindness skills training center in the state of Nevada, Angela's House, which we partner with a nonprofit group, Blind Connect. They train people that are visually impaired how to live independently on their own. So it's a very unique facility, and again, we would love to have you come and visit if you haven't seen it. So as part of that, myself and my staff, we work with people with disabilities and senior citizens and teach them how to use regular public transportation to get around to where they need to go. Many of our clients are paratransit eligible, but they want a different mode of transportation. They want options and to be able to travel around the community just like everyone else and not have to book their rides 1 to 3 days in advance and things like that. Fixed Route offers them that opportunity, and it's a lot more cost effective, and especially now during COVID when people have to decide whether or not they're going to eat or buy medication. So if a person that's paratransit eligible can ride the city bus for free, we say, hey, we're all for it. So as part of that, we work with a lot of different individuals and families, and we have a lot of people that have gone through our program. So we thought it would be great to put together an electronic book that we could put on the RTC's website and tell the stories of our staff, or from our staff and from our students, just about what mobility training has meant to them. And one of the biggest challenges we have is when we want to work with a customer or a client is the family. So usually our clients are very gung-ho, and maybe mom and dad not so much. So we thought if they could go on here and read stories from other people talking about just how much this has helped them, it might help ease that a little bit. So if you can go ahead and click on the link, and we'll see if we can get this opened up. All right, so again, we put together this electronic book, and we were thinking about this for quite some time, and so we work with our government affairs program to do this, so I want to give them a shout out because they did a wonderful job with this, and we thought it would be an easy way for everybody to be able to access it. So if you can go ahead and click on the first page. So we start out just by a table of contents talking about some of our customers that we've worked with, and then we also have stories from educators as well. We do a training program with Clark County School District for their students with disabilities, and we bring them to the Mobility Training Center, which you can see down there on the right-hand side, And most of the time we have classes of anywhere from 10 to 30 kids that come in, and we teach them public safety, stranger danger, street crossing skills, all of those things. And some of the educators, we ask them to please give us, you know, a little bit of a testimonial about what it has meant for their students as well. So if you could click on the next page and go one more. So then we start seeing some of our customers. So again, we ask them just to please give us, you know, in their own words, you know, what this has meant to them. And we went out and took photographs of them, so they were all gracious enough to let us do that and tell a little bit about their stories. If you could go to the next page, go one more, one more, one more. This gentleman here, his name is Chris. I was just going to very quickly read you what he had to say. I know this is kind of small for maybe some of you, so it's hard to see. But he said, I am able to be more independent and go more places since I participated in the mobility training program. Taking the city bus helps because when I go to my location, I don't have a time limit and I can be there as long as I want. I have a weekend with nothing to do. I can just hop on the city bus and just go and do activities. Learning how to use the RTC mobile app, Ride RTC, was very helpful. It indicated how long the bus would take to be at the bus stop and if it's running late or early. The app keeps track of how many stops are along the route and notifies you when the stop is coming up. This helps because you are not on the bus panicking and wondering when you should get off. I was recommended this training because it is helpful for anyone who wants to learn to be more independent. It also empowers paratransit riders to know that they are capable of more than just riding the paratransit bus. How cool is it to tell your friends that you take the city bus just like everyone else? So again, you know, we were very thankful that our customers, you know, were able to speak up and have their voices be heard. If you could click ahead to our educator section. So all of the individuals here are all teachers with Clark County School District. They either work in a special ed program or in their transition services program. So Micah wrote, I'm a middle school teacher who works with autistic students. I wanted my students to participate in mobility training program so they can become more independent by accessing public transportation. The RTC Mobility Training Center teaches students how to read the schedules, cross streets, board bus, pay fares, and where to sit on the bus in a safe real world environment. The mobility trainers have been extremely helpful and interact well with our students. The RTC has helped our class travel to locations that we would not be able to access by walking. My students have gained confidence boarding the bus and paying their fares. As part of our training too, we will actually go out to the schools and we'll ride with the teacher and their students to different destinations that they want to go to, teaching them all how to do it and to be able to get there safely. So we have been really, really proud of our partnership with CCSD and hope to continue that post-COVID once all of this is done. If you could click ahead to the staff section. So we just decided to put a little blurb in about us so that if we were going to go out and work with customer students, that families or caregivers could learn a little bit more about us and why it is that we love what we do. If you could click ahead. This is one of my staff, Diana Perez. I want to give her special props for this. She took this project under her wing and really made it her own. So she was responsible for doing the majority of the work on this and putting it together, getting the stories and the photographs and coordinating with our government affairs program. So a big shout out to her for a job well done. Next slide, or next page. This is another one of my staff, Danielle Silva, and she's been with me the longest. And just a little bit about her and why she loves doing what she does here for the RTC. Next page. And just a little bit about myself. And final page. Just our contact information. So the picture on the right, for those of you who haven't been at the MTC, that's a picture of the inside of the facility. So again, it's a outdoor environment indoors, tried to make it as real world as we could. But that is the end of my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that there might be.
Thanks, Jim. What an awesome idea. And for those of you who haven't been to the Mobility Training Center, I would really urge you to do that. So does anyone have questions for Jim? Comments? Hearing none, we can move on to item number 7, which is topics of interest. So Carl. I think. Carl, am I handing off to you here?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here talking to myself. Thank you, Carl Scarborough, again for the record. This is the time for the Bus Shelter and Bench Advisory Committee members to share any information about activities, meetings, news, or other topics of interest. While no action may be taken on the subjects discussed, this item provides an opportunity for the exchange of information and may serve as the forum to recommend future meeting agenda items.
Anyone have any committee public comments, so to speak? Anything anyone wants to share or discuss?
Madam Chair, we do have a new member on the committee, Dr. Richardson, if he wants to introduce himself.
Terrific.
Sorry, I had to find the mute button. Thank you. My name is Dr. Vince Richardson. I'm a native to North Las Vegas, born and raised. I've been a teacher for about 14, 15 years. I'm an Army veteran, and I'm also a college professor. But I'm glad to be a part of this committee, and I'm learning a lot. Thank you for having me.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. Thanks for your service, and in more ways than one, it would appear. Anyone else have anything they want to share? I'd like to say we did Santa in the Crosswalk this morning with 26 of our Southern Nevada's finest, reminding drivers of the role they play in pedestrian safety. We were nowhere near a bus stop for a change, so we were both on Jones and on Rainbow Boulevard. And I'd also like to say that on December 30th, for the first time in a long time, and I have to preface this by saying this was already in the works, but we're doing enforcement for the 3-foot law in the state of Nevada for bicyclists. And if you don't know, the message that we're going to be pushing is that we talk a lot about we have a 3-foot law, we have a 3-foot law, you have to give bicyclists 3 feet. But in reality, that's the minimum of what the law says. And what the law really says, if you don't know, is that in the state of Nevada, if you're approaching a cyclist from behind and you're on a multi-lane road, that unless it is not safe for you to do so, that you're supposed to merge into the adjacent lane and give the cyclist the entire lane. And the 3-foot law comes to play only if that's not possible, that you pull as far to your left as you can to give that cyclist at least 3 feet of distance, which is what we call falling distance. But if you've ever been a bicyclist and you've had a car buzz past you at 35 miles an hour, you know very well that 3 feet's really not enough. So Southern Nevada law enforcement will be joining together again on the 30th to do that enforcement. And I'm sure that they're also probably going to be doing a little impaired driving enforcement in the next couple of weeks as well. So the rule is the zero fatality goal. If it's not okay for anyone that you love to die in a motor vehicle crash, to make 2020 more of the worst year ever, have a zero fatality plan and have a plan for how you're getting where you're going safely. That's always my end of the year speech. So that's my public comment. Anyone else?
Aaron, my wife and I were on I-95 and passed the cyclists down by Searchlight, and on our way home from hiking, saw the tragedy. And I was, I listened to a lot of newscasts, and what you just said, which is exactly right. I only heard on one newscast one time the fact, they mentioned a 3-foot law, but not the fact that you're supposed to move into the adjacent lane if you're able to. So thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for also mentioning the December 30th, and let's all be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I can't imagine having driven by that. I think one of the things that happens is that the fact that that driver was arrested for having 8 times the legal limit of meth, which I didn't know that there was a legal limit of meth, but turns out I said that to one of the sergeants today, and they said, oh, no, there's a per se. And I'm sure it's 0, but I think that became the story very quickly. And the vast majority of people don't drive with substances in their body, but they do need to know what their duty is to cyclists, because if you've never been one, and Rick, I think you are a cyclist, right? That vortex, that pulling, and we want to encourage more people to get out and walk and bike. So this is the way that we do it, is by reminding drivers of the role that they play. So thanks for the addendum. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Oops, I just muted myself. If there's no other questions or comments, we can move on to the next item, which is our final citizens' participation. It's the second time in our meeting set aside for public comment. Just a reminder, comments will be limited to the first 500 words, with the remaining words to be included in the written record. Do we have any comments from anyone, Maren?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Maren. Going once, going twice on public comment here. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February the 18th. And if we have no other public comment, we certainly wish everyone a safe and sane holiday season, and we'll see you all in February. Please be careful out there on so many levels. So take care, everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, if that's what you celebrate. Whatever holiday it is you celebrate, I hope that you get to spend it with at least a few people that you care about in your life.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Bye.
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 Everyone.